And in those 30 years, due to my immaturity and my insecurity, I was pretty much a blind follower. And I just did what I was told and did what the right thing was. And I thought that I was a really good devotee because I was doing all the right things. And after 30 years, Krishna kind of shattered my glass house and just really shook me up like an earthquake.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Free Radical Podcast. Today, I have the immense pleasure of talking to a newly discovered sister, wise elder, and I will say radical personalist, Sukhavaha dasi. Born to a Protestant minister's family, Sukhavaha graduated with a bachelor's in social welfare from Pennsylvania State University and accepted initiation from her guru, Srila Prabhupada, in 1975. Ordained as an interfaith minister in 1992, she has served at the Varsana Eye Camp annually for 15 years. With extensive training in healing and coaching, she supports spiritual seekers in addressing buried emotions to foster personal growth and relationships. An advocate for emotional maturity and intentional communication, Sukhavaha has authored 4 books, including Finding the Gap, Some Truth About the Lies We Tell Ourselves, and What to Do About You, a memoir of her deprogramming at 22. She currently works as a chaplain and facilitator with Karuna Care. A mother of 3 and grandmother of 3, she resides near New Brindavan, West Virginia, in a home built with her children. We had a wonderful conversation with Sukhavaha. We talked about topics like radical personalism and our identity, how to find our identity, when we go through identity crisis and when to let go on certain perceived sense of identities, how to deal with our mind and make our mind our best friend. Topics like self-worth and healing buried emotions, how to connect with our sweet absolute in our heart. Lots about her personal journey. So, very wonderful conversation. Invited to join us. This is the Free Radical Podcast, and to support it, please subscribe to the channel by clicking on the bell. If you like the conversation, please share it, like it, and drop out your comments so we can keep this ongoing conversation for what it is, an ongoing conversation about the infinite and about how to relate with all that surrounds us is the most deep, profound, moving place. So, without further ado, dear brothers and sisters, here is Sukhavaha dasi. Sukhavaha, thank you so much for joining us in the Free Radical Podcast. Such a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here, really.
I'm excited to be here as well. Lots of anticipation, and we have some conversation maybe a month ago or something. Our first 2-dimensional conversation. Still looking forward to the 3D meeting, and yeah, for me it went very smoothly. Like with those people that you meet and you feel okay, I met them before, and we don't need any introduction, and it's just very natural, like-mindedness. So yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I agree.
So here we are. I'm thinking maybe if you would like to briefly start by sharing with us a little bit of your own journey. Of course, it's so long and there are so many chapters and so many highlights or downlights or all types of lights in the timeline.
Yeah.
But really briefly, whatever you feel is better to share today is more, and how that journey has taken to where you are today. No?
Yeah. Okay. I can start there.
Yes.
Um, I uh, joined the Bhakti movement in
Hmm.
1974 in August. Now,
Hmm.
I had come to the path by reading Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, which I got from a friend in college who was not a devotee and didn't know anything about devotees.
Hmm.
So I had that as my preliminary introduction. And then I came and I moved immediately with my then husband to New Vrindavan.
Okay.
And we just wanted to just, you know, jump right in because we
Hmm.
had tried a lot of other things in life and we were really looking for meaning and purpose. And it seemed like there was something very meaningful and very purposeful
Hmm.
in New Vrindavan and in the movement. And so we joined there, and I was basically affiliated with that aspect for a good 30 years.
Hmm.
And in those 30 years, due to my immaturity and my insecurity, I was pretty much a blind follower. And I
Hmm.
just did what I was told and did what the right thing was. And I thought that I was a really good devotee because I was doing all the right things.
Hmm.
And after 30 years,
Of being a
Krishna
good
kind
girl.
of being a good girl, Krishna kind of shattered my glass house
Hmm.
and just really shook me up like an earthquake.
Hmm.
And yeah, and so in that earthquake, I was very upset and frustrated. But at the same time, it's like, what do you want, Krishna? What do you want from me? What do you want now?
So that earthquake came at your 50s, let's approx.
I was 47, basically.
47. Wow,
Yeah,
that's an
yeah,
interesting moment in life
yeah.
to
So it was
go through an
20.
earthquake. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
literally a midlife crisis in every sense of
Yes,
the term.
literally a midlife crisis. And so, because everything was falling apart, and I didn't seem to be able to get really answers because all the answers that I already knew and everybody around me was telling me were the same old
Yeah.
cliches,
Hmm.
which did not touch the depth of my confusion.
Hmm.
And so I really had to go direct to the source and really just say, okay, Krishna, whatever you're wanting from me right now, I have no clue. And if you want me to figure something out or do something different or show me something, you need to show me because I have no idea. Yeah.
So we can assume that Krishna replied very nicely to see you now where you are now.
Well, what can I say? I mean, Krishna always applies, always, excuse me, Krishna always replies. It's not necessarily in the way that we want,
No, no, I never
nor in
say
the
that.
time
I never say that.
frame.
Disclaimer.
However,
Yes.
yes, yes. But, I needed my world to be shaken up because I was stuck in a little box
Hmm.
and I wasn't really getting to the place that I wanted to be at, really, but I didn't know how to get to that place. So when Krishna kind of smashed my fragile glass house, I couldn't even pick the pieces up and glue them together. It's like I had to start over.
Mm.
And one book that really helped me at that time was by a Buddhist nun, Pema Chodron. When
Yes.
things fall apart, I
Hmm.
was like, okay, that's exactly where I am.
Hmm.
And she was very compassionate in her book. And really, that was one of the things that helped me. And then I went outside and took outside courses and things that just helped me to look at my life and at Krishna consciousness from a new perspective. And I could align everything with my tradition. It was just that it was being spoken with different words. And because there were new words, I could hear it differently and I could get it differently.
Mm.
And so sometimes, using the same words doesn't help us to get things differently. And just hearing the same philosophy but with different words
Mm.
just helped me a lot. And
Mm.
so, yeah, so I just started looking at myself and looking inside and seeing the things that I did that didn't work and seeing where I had come and like, how did I get here? I didn't want to be here. I wanted to be over there. And how did I get kind of like kind of stray from the path when I thought I was on the straight and narrow. And what did I tell myself, and what was I doing, and where, especially where were my blind spots?
Mm.
What was I blind to? I was blind to that I was a blind follower. I was blind to, a lot of things that I was just unwilling to see in my little box, because that little box was safe and secure, and I knew what to do and I knew the answers. And
Mm.
when it was shattered, I didn't know anything. And interestingly enough, when I didn't know anything, I could learn a lot more.
Yes, yes. Wow, beautiful. So much is
Yeah.
you are sharing in that, and so much I could just, how to say, every journey is unique, but in general terms, I could take each of your words and plagiarize them and make them my own. And we have been sharing our journeys in a more personal way in
Yes.
our first
Yes.
conversation, and of course yours. I cannot but avoid finding my own version of each one of those chapters of my world being shattered and having to start again and rediscovering
Yes.
Krishna consciousness
Yes.
many times by the grace of other practitioners from other traditions, which are using, as you
Yes.
say, another language to articulate the same thing. And
Yes.
sometimes how language is so important, as we may
Yes.
underestimate sometimes the importance of language crafting experience. No,
Yes.
sometimes we
Yes.
forget the
Yes.
language conveys experience, and I really like what
Yeah.
you mentioned, how you were blind to your blindness, or to your blind following, or to your blind spots. And
Yes.
I was just thinking how in our tradition, many times a great personality is described with the word rishi or sage, right? Rishi means like a seer, or
Uh-huh.
tattva-darshan, like in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes the guru tattva-darshinaha. So tattva means the truth or reality, and darshan means
Yes.
someone who sees. So I was thinking
Yes.
now, by hearing you, came this new meaning to that expression, like someone who sees, that is not only someone who sees, but also someone who is willing to see. No, because
Absolutely.
sometimes we are not willing to see what we are blind to, and but when you are willing to see, okay, then you can become a seer of truth. So I was, yeah, just reflecting
Yes.
on those words.
Yes.
So it seems that
I
you
would
were,
agree.
yeah, yeah. Oh,
That word willing is really important, because Krishna will not um he will not show us if we don't want to see.
yeah. He will not
He
will
is
for
he,
us.
no, he will not will for us. He's very compassionate, and you know, he doesn't, push us unless we're praying, I want this. And he's like, okay, okay, you've been praying that for a while now, and you're not getting any closer. I'm going to have to like up the ante here a little bit and shake you up a little bit so you can really get what you want.
Yeah, yeah, because love is voluntary ultimately, right? I'm thinking maybe we do not still fully get it, what it means to enter into a relationship of love with God, and how free it has to be, how voluntary it has to be. And Krishna is inviting us to that, but we do not want to be free. We don't want to choose. We don't want to take responsibility. So,
Well, yeah, there's fear,
mhm,
there's insecurity, there's
yes,
all these things which
yes.
keep us stuck.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
think we'll go through that in our conversation today. And I'm thinking, whatever we may go through our conversation today in those directions, self worth and insecurity and fear, it's all in the context of making ourselves whole, so we can really appreciate what love means. So we can really take the voluntary decision and be intentional about addressing Krishna in a loving way with all that it entails, right? So for me, just to put
Yes.
that in context, because you may have heard, as I have heard sometimes from some people in our community and other communities, like all this emotional psychological stuff, that's not spiritual, that is disconnected from Krishna consciousness. But then for me, it's like that's establishing the proper foundation, so you can, from that healed foundation, you can have a correct idea of what love means, no? About your
Yes.
investment,
Yes.
your intention, your is participatory, right?
Yes. 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 Yeah, we have ideas what love means, but it's like love is ever expanding. So
Hmm. Yes.
there's a lot to
Yeah.
to look at.
Yeah. Even if our ideas about love are accurate, since love is ever expanding, we immediately need to catch up with the new upgraded version of love. So
Yes, 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 yes. That's where we need to upgrade regularly.
pretty
Yes,
demanding. Yeah. Catch up with
yes.
the unfolding of transcendence. So,
Wonderful.
well, you're here now then, Sukaba, after all this journey, all this scattering and the lessons you've gone, the confrontation and the
Uh-huh.
like. I was talking with a friend today during breakfast. I sometimes like to use the image of the shed. When you put the stuff at home, when you don't know where to put it in your house, you have a shed, and
Yes,
the unconscious is like the shed, right? Like we've throw
yes.
all that stuff. At one point, the shed starts to have a life of its own. You start to see voices coming from the shed, some arms coming out, and you are scared to open the shed, so you inaugurate the second shed to continue to put stuff, and then you have an army of sheds. And my friend today made the play of words, say, but we need to shed light on the shed, right?
Ah,
I like
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
using the
yeah,
same
yeah.
word in a redemptive way. No,
Yes,
let's
yes,
shed
yes,
some light
yes,
on the shed, and with Krishna's grace, we can look at that in the face, so to say. So I'm so happy that
yes.
you have taken the steps of doing that and the willingness to die to so many things or to so many ways of thinking and be born again at your 47, 48, 5th. Born again Vaishnav. We have born again Krishna, you
I'd
have
like
born again Vaishnav.
I'd like to qualify that though. It
Okay.
wasn't that I was like fully willing it. It was that my life was falling apart so
Mhm.
badly
Mm,
that I wanted to kill myself, basically.
mm,
So it was that bad. And so, I knew that I couldn't do that. That
mhm,
wasn't really going to be the solution.
mhm,
So I did pray very angrily to Krishna,
mm.
what do you want? If you want to show me something, you got to show me, because I don't know what you even want to show me. I'm hitting my head against it. It hurts. What is it? So the willingness was just because I was so desperate.
Yeah, yeah.
And interestingly enough, even the feeling that I wanted to die,
Mm.
there was something that I needed to die to.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yes,
When someone is suicidal, they feel, I want to die. And something, they are right in the sense that
yes,
something needs to die, but it's not
yes,
themselves, right? Yeah.
right. Some aspect of the consciousness needs to
Hmm.
to be reborn.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification and for how to say, for qualifying your journey in a more vulnerable way. And it was not my intention to depict you as a superheroine with you fully voluntarily and willingly chose everything, because we know that that's not the case, not only for you but for anyone. No, part of the journey implies, yeah, unwillingness, pain, sadness, and even, as you say, suicidal
Yeah,
tendencies.
yeah,
Which
yeah.
behind those suicidal tendencies, this important point that something needs to die, and I need to die to be born again, die to live, as Hegel will say.
Yes,
For me, I
yes,
like to even conceive the spiritual journey as a series of deaths and rebirths ongoingly.
ab-
Sometimes we
absolutely.
have more significant chapters where really something needs to die a lot.
Yes,
But on a daily basis, that should be a way of talking about progress. What does it mean, progress? Dying to something, being born to something, and dying to a lower conception of Christian consciousness and being born to a higher conception. And tomorrow there will be a higher conception because it's ever evolving, right?
yes,
So I
yes.
think in this way we can normalize death also. And when the moment of leaving this body comes, we have died enough, dying
Yeah,
before
we
death.
like, okay, this is the big one.
Right?
Those were all tests.
Yeah.
Yes. And they can even come, not even it can even, excuse me, come in the simple aspects of our life, just like having a conversation with a person who
Mm,
maybe is stubborn. And so how am I going to connect with this person and relate to this person, without, throwing something
mm.
on them? you know.
Yeah.
And so that means dying to
Yeah.
something inside of me that may feel that it wants to do that. So that's
Mm.
like even those little moments of,
Yeah.
considering, is there another way I could speak to this person?
Yeah. Thank you for that clarification, because yeah, sometimes we may like over idealize how the dying should take place, and we are waiting on every day for the big event that I need to die to, and it's not coming because it's already coming in a more quote unquote ordinary way or normal way. But yeah,
Yes.
it's totally like you were mentioning. And I'm curious, just to conclude this first part of our conversation, you're telling your story, you're telling how you went to Krishna in your desperation, in your suffering, asking
Uh-huh.
for, okay, show me, guide me. And I'm saying, and I'm asking this because I know that many other people, not to say everyone, at some point they are find themselves in that situation,
Yeah.
of being bewildered or being confused or being even in a,
Yeah.
in a spiritual sense. I don't feel, I'm not finding meaning and purpose, and I'm just practicing in a very mechanical way. It's devoid
Yes.
of substance. I'm feeling my faith is being affected. I feel I'm not growing. I don't feel Krishna is present in my life, and so on. So how did what happened as a result of your prayer? Of course, I'm not saying one thing happened and everything now is magic, but if you share some words, how how Krishna replied to your approach in that particular moment, how you felt his reply coming to you, which form that took.
Well, first of all, um, I'd like to say that it was because I was just so like overwhelmed and bewildered, and I was losing everything, and I was losing things that I really cared about. You know, this pain, this suffering, really gave me a motivation to want to do something different. I got to do something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to lose all these things. And so, in order to not lose the things that I was very attached to, I said, I got to change myself. 'Cause- and so, I went and I did a lot of internal work, like
Mm-hmm.
really looking at myself.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I doing this? Why, what's this? Where's this coming from? And the courses that I took were really self-reflective. I did some, ongoing courses for probably 4 or 5 years. I did some nonviolent communication courses. And the whole purpose was to just find out what was wrong with me so I could fix it, so I could go back to my life as it was. Like, so I could fix it and then,
Yeah.
like, everything would be okay again. But what happened was, in looking how to fix myself, I actually found myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I found a part of me underneath all of the insecurity and underneath all of the low self esteem and the low self worth. And I found a part of me that I could, really empathize with and respect and honor. And when I came to find that part of me, I realized that I didn't need this other part out here to be my security.
Mm-hmm.
I found some inner security and some connectedness with myself and with Krishna. And that really helped me to slow down and shift my perspective about what is really true for me and what is really beneficial for me. Just like Rupa Goswami says, we accept those things that are favorable, so then I could look at things anew and say,
Mm-hmm.
is this really favorable? I mean, I've been doing it for 27, 30 years, and I thought it was favorable, and maybe it was favorable in the beginning, but is this favorable now? And then I could just look at things more openly and honestly. And that being like self honest brought me, to other places and other steps. And I was able to then let go of what I thought I was going to die without.
Hmm.
And I didn't die, but I died to the conception
Yeah,
that I needed that.
yeah. You died in a way that needs to be, that needs, we need to die off. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I really appreciate your emphasis on introspection. I can use, if I have to use one word for you, like you went really into a journey of deep introspection and self
Yeah.
inquiry, and
Yeah.
even if it was for the sake of returning back to the usual scenario, you took it very deeply in terms of, okay, changing yourself and not so much fixing the environment and everything else adapting to me. And in that fixing yourself, of course, your whole world changed and you found yourself. And there was, as you say, no need and no chance to return to the usual thing, because there's no more usual thing. Now you're discovering yourself. And I was just thinking about, I know always likes to make this point regarding introspection, how in our tradition in the Srimad Bhagavatam, when Brahma is looking, no, going down no,
Yes.
the lotus and looking for meaning and purpose, in one sense, trying
Yes.
to find himself in the
Yes.
world. It was only himself and a lotus flower. That's it.
Yeah.
And when he sat, he heard the word tapas, right?
Yeah.
And one
Yes.
meaning of the word tapas, literally in Sanskrit, tapas means fire. Although sometimes we translate as austerity, but tapas means fire. So it's funny for me because he hears fire, and of course there was no fire. He didn't took two
Right.
words and started to make fire. He closed his eyes and looked inside. He became introspective. No, so here he heard fire, and he interpreted fire as looking inside, which is a type of fire. It's entering the fire.
Yes. Yes.
So for me, it's interesting that in one sense that word tapas or fire for me can be translated as introspection. No, Krishna
Yes.
telling Brahma, be introspective, and you will
Yeah.
find the answer that you are not finding by looking outside and going up and down. So the very first word of the whole creation is introspection, like to
It
make the
is.
point of, okay, this whole thing is about uh, being introspection and finding, as you say, your inner resourcefulness, right? As you were looking inside, you find your inner security. I like the word dignity in this
Yes.
connection, right? You
Yes.
contacted
Yes.
something about you, and you, I mean, every one of us, you contacted who you are, and there's some dignity to who we are, no? And that's humbling,
Yes.
that's moving. That's why I think Krishna says in the Gita, when he speaks about the soul in 229, the soul is amazing, as Charya. He says three times, amazing. I mean, you are amazing. You're amazing. That's the best self-worth formula we can find. He himself saying, you have so much, the soul has so much beauty, so much dignity, such a noble thing we are. Not to become proud, because as I like to say,
No. Yeah.
I'm not my own creation. So I don't
Yeah.
have any reasons to be. I happen to be amazing for what I am, but I'm not my own creation. So I'm humbled by that, right? So
Yeah.
so I really appreciate that, and especially what you mentioned about accepting what's favorable, rejecting what's unfair, because sometimes the votes may think that's like a fixed list, right?
Oh yeah. Right.
Do's
Exactly. Yeah.
and
That's
don'ts. This is what you have to do. This is what you don't have to do. Formula given, success guaranteed. Good luck on the journey. But it's way more nuanced than that. And at one point, as you say, what was favorable for me for 20, 30 years is not working now. So
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
what's favorable for me. I will add that in the list. Accept what's favorable for you and this at this given moment of the journey, and not just what's favorable always in every situation for every person, because
Right. Exactly. There is
that may
no.
make the whole journey more impersonal, probably, right? Instead of addressing
Absolutely.
the uniqueness of each journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I wanted to add something to what you
yeah.
said about the amazingness. You know,
Please.
we're a part and parcel of Krishna,
Mm-hmm.
and Krishna is so amazing
Mm-hmm.
that even a tiny spark is just really amazing because we come from the most amazing
Mm.
supreme personality of Godhead.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes no sense saying Christians, they're all amazing and we are crap.
Exactly. It
We are
doesn't
part
make
of
any sense at
we are
all.
a crappy part of the all amazing. Doesn't compute, right? So
Does not
thank you.
compute. Does
Thank you
not
for doing
compute.
the math for us, Sukhavaha. So we're talking about how impersonal we can be in the journey in terms of, okay, giving like universalized formulas instead of asking ourselves where I am, what do I need. And of course, as you know, I've written a book called Radical Personalism, trying to, in one way, addressing the impersonalism that happens in the context of personalism.
Yeah.
And I like to think of radical personalism as something that invites us, as you say, to relate to ourselves for who we are as parts of Krishna, as amazing parts of the all amazing. Uh, so I don't know, what comes to my mind now is, what does it mean to you to truly see ourselves as eternal parts of Krishna beyond the masks of our temporary persona, so to say?
Well, I don't know that we get to that place of finding that authentic part until we're willing to peel a few layers.
Mm,
And even Bhagavad Gita tells us the soul is covered by layers,
mm,
like a fire covered by smoke.
mm,
And Prabhupada says it's like we have coats on. We're
mhm,
covered with layers. So sometimes to find who we are, we have to see who we really aren't, that we think that we are
mhm.
first,
Yes.
and be able to identify what we're identifying with. We'd be able to name, like, well, who do I think I am, or who do I
Mhm,
think I should be, or who do I think I should be that other people think I should be. So it gets really it gets very convoluted and very complicated as
mhm,
we add layers on. And generally, we all have layers. And generally, when we come to Krishna consciousness, we come because we have a certain identity crisis, like, what is my ultimate meaning and purpose? Why am I suffering?
yeah.
And then we come to a religious movement or Krishna consciousness because we're suffering. And why am I suffering? What is my meaning and purpose? There must be something good. Otherwise, what is my meaning and purpose?
Mhm,
And so the we get different meanings and purposes according to kind of our association, what we've learned from our parents. And then as we even come to Krishna consciousness, there's a certain kind of a, like you say, a formula, like, this is what a devotee looks like. Now, interestingly enough, the Srimad Bhagavatam is describes so many different kinds of
mhm,
devotees. The cobbler, the even in the Bible, the woman who gave a penny and the guy who gave $1 million or whatever, and and so there's so many stories in our scriptures which show
mhm,
that there's a variety of persons and a variety of ways to be devotees.
mhm,
Now, when we come to Krishna consciousness with our layers, this is what I did, and I think this is what maybe a lot of us do. We have the layers, and then we have what Krishna consciousness looks like. And then we try to paste Krishna consciousness on top of all those layers.
mhm.
Now, I used super glue, so I was able to keep it stuck on there for 27, 30 years.
Wow, that was a
However,
good clue. That was a good clue. I won't tell you to mention the brand of the glue because many may feel tempted to get that one, but we don't
no,
want it. We don't
no,
want
no, no. But it ultimately it doesn't stick because you can't put truth on top of lies.
it. Hmm.
And so the stories we tell ourselves, the beliefs we have deep inside in the unconscious from our subtle body that we brought from our past lives, those beliefs prevent us from having revelations of the absolute truth. We may know the absolute truth in theory, and we
Yeah,
have maybe even memorize it,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but it doesn't manifest as something that we can see on a
Experiential.
regular basis experientially because we're still believing lies which contradict with the absolute truth. So we got to understand the lies we tell ourselves before we can get to the truth that's already there. It's
Mm-hmm.
there
Mm-hmm.
inside of us.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. So many things again. I feel so tempted to address so many things you mentioned and continue to elaborate. And I will do so. I will indulge in my temptation and a few things that
Okay,
you
go ahead.
mentioned. First one, I really appreciated what you mentioned about many times we may need to start what's in Latin called via negativa, like start to what I'm not, and because it may not have a clear picture of who I am. So, like sometimes devotees come to me asking, Maharaj, so what's my vocation? And sometimes even devotees think Swami is a solver of all sorts. Of so I say, well,
Yes.
maybe you start with you don't have clear idea what to do with your life, where you do not see doing some things in your life, which are the
Yeah,
vocations
yeah.
that you definitely do not see doing that. Start there. Okay, I'm not
Right.
this, I won't definitely do that. So you start to
Okay.
gain some
Right.
clarity, even if it's in negative terms, right? Or like
Right. And it simplifies your choices too.
yeah, of course, exactly.
Yeah.
You are not so overwhelmed by an endless parade of
Yes. Yes.
possibilities. And Krishna
Yes.
does the
Yes.
same in the Gita, right? When he speaks about the soul, he begins saying what the soul is not, right? The soul cannot be
Yes.
burned, cannot be killed, this, that. And when he finally says something about what the soul is, he comes to say this, you are amazing. No? But first he establishes this via negativa, no? First with what we are, you're not. And
Yes.
and I also appreciated how you mentioned eventually how you have we each of us have to how you find different examples of different devotees in the Bhagavatam or cross culturally in different scriptures, which basically gives the message that each one has to learn to practice spirituality in their own unique way. I mean, your own relationship with God is irrepeatable from anyone else. So there's no one version, let's say, of Krishna consciousness. There are as many versions as there are practitioners of Krishna consciousness.
Yes. Yes.
And there is a
Yes.
corresponding unique Krishna reciprocated with each devotee in a way that is unique, and you cannot just like replicate and copy paste or something like that, right?
No.
And how to reach that point of individuation, if we may use that term,
Yes.
living and practicing from a very unique place. Many times we need to go through this, as you say, to the shed of the unconscious and confront those assumptions or beliefs we may have that are there, many times creating, as you say, a foundation. And we try to put truth on top of the foundation, but the whole building work will crumble eventually because the foundation is untruth, no? So,
Yes.
and I
And
like,
your
sorry,
formula won't work.
sorry?
If you got your first
Yeah,
equation
yeah,
wrong,
exactly.
the rest of the whole equation is wrong too. Yeah.
And it's so funny because we many times become obsessed with continue to add the subsequent numbers perfectly and nicely and I'm doing it now, I'm doing it correctly, but the first one was wrong, the whole thing collapses, as Prabhupada would say. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like always to make this difference between you spoke about our beliefs, right, versus what's the truth. No,
Yes.
and how we can have so many beliefs, we can have learn a philosophy, learn concepts, but that doesn't translate necessarily into experience. We can have all the right things, know all the right things to say, all the right things to do, as you say, be a good girl for 3 decades or whatever. But what's the experience? What's at the foundation? And I like to make a clear difference between the belief and faith, right? Because
Mm.
I may believe in, but what's that? No, maybe assumptions, prejudices, fears, unconscious stuff, lies, basically, as you are mentioning, versus
Uh-huh.
faith. That faith basically means a direct contact with truth,
Ah.
unfiltered by all that stuff. Because sometimes we use the
Mm.
two words as if they were the same. Like sometimes we
Yes.
use fitting in and belonging as if they are the same, and they're in
Uh-huh.
one sense even opposites, right?
Yes, 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 yes,
And
yes,
again, going
yes,
back to
yes.
language, how language is
Yes.
crafting our experience.
Yes, 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 yes,
Mm.
yes.
So Kabaha, I'm thinking regarding what we are talking, I think big part of our healing as practitioners and as humans, because we are souls, but we're in a human experience, And also, we want to relate to Krishna in his Nara Lila, which is a human like Lila. So there is some type of humanity there. So I personally feel we are not to dismiss our humanity, but to learn to be fully human instead of
Yes.
dismiss it and become inhuman. so that's in itself a big challenge, right? How to integrate spirituality and humanity. So I'm wondering, what's in your experience, what's the greatest challenge that you've seen people face in reconciling their spiritual and human identities?
Um, yeah, that's a big question. Let me just see if I can take a bite.
Yes, yes.
Um, so we are a soul in a human machine,
Mm-hmm.
and it is excruciating for a soul to be in a human machine because it's not our real home, it's not our real identity, and we do feel separated from Krishna.
Mm-hmm.
And so, however, because in this world, this material world, like the main goal is
Mm.
to avoid pain, and we do everything to avoid pain.
Mm.
And yet, actually, it's the pain that gets us to the truth. And it's the
Mm.
pain that sobers us up. And it's the pain that connects us to love.
Can you elaborate on that, please? Because I imagine some
Yes.
of the listeners, like, how pain takes you to truth, how pain connects you to love.
Yeah. Well,
I totally agree, of course. I'm just begging for
it's okay. Um,
elaborate.
well, in avoiding pain, even Prabhupada says the we avoid pain, and when we avoid pain, we call that pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
But and we're looking for quick fixes
Yes.
to just numb the pain, avoid the pain, just to feel good in the moment, and we call that happiness,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And there's this distinction, we call it like, sense gratification. Well, I used to think sense gratification meant anything that had anything to do with enjoyment, and so I believed falsely I should suffer. I shouldn't be an enjoyer. I should sacrifice and just suffer.
A
You know,
festival of whipping. Bring the whips.
yes. And that was not actually helping me to be able to touch the real pain. What that did, it hardened me and made my armor t- stronger and
Mhm.
tighter and closed up my heart chakra, and
Mhm.
and then I had to numb myself. I couldn't feel. And how did I numb myself? I worked hard, I worked fast, I kept busy, and I did a lot of service.
all
And I
all
just,
that, yeah, all of that in the name of spirituality, so that becomes even more tricky.
yes, numbing myself to the real pain by taking on austerities and suffering. But it's not, that's not the pain I'm talking about. I'm not
Mhm.
talking about suffering or performing austerities. I'm talking about being with the pain of just the pains that we want to avoid.
Mhm.
And when we numb
Mm.
ourselves to those pains, when you numb one emotion, you
Yes.
numb them all.
Mhm.
So if you're numbing the pain, you're also numbing your ability to feel the love. Now, if
Mm.
people don't believe that pain and love are very intimately connected,
Mhm.
maybe you need to talk to the gopis because they do have a real sense and an
Yeah.
experience that love and pain are connected. And
Yes.
we talk about this, you know, separation and how it's the highest form of bliss, you know, but it's not a bliss that we're thinking of like a
Yeah.
sense gratification,
Mhm.
happiness, feel good bliss. It's intense,
Yeah.
but the intensity of it is the intensity of the love. And so as we try to avoid the pained parts of ourself, our existential grief, our sadness, our confusion. Who am I? What is my purpose? What do I do while I'm here in this material body, besides just work hard and distract myself and can't wait till I die and go back to Godhead, if that's going to happen.
I don't
Um,
think that's going to happen if you live your life like that.
exactly, exactly. But that's what we're all kind of hoping and
Yeah, yeah,
wishing.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And so, being able to be with the little pains of life, like it's like we don't have to perform austerities. There's enough pain in the world already.
Mm.
And just even sitting and chanting japa, that can be excruciating for the false ego. Can be
Mm-hmm.
excruciating for someone with ADD like myself, because you want to move and you want to do something and produce something. It's painful to
Mm-hmm.
just sit
Tapas
and
again.
just be present.
Fire, introspection,
Exactly.
passions. Yeah.
So that when we can be with those kind of pains, especially during japa, the pain of like,
Mm.
okay, sit here, you're not moving,
Mm.
focus, pray, introspect, then Krishna can show us some deeper things, and when we can even be with the little pains of life,
Mm-hmm.
the pains that surround us, without pushing them away, without hating them, even our childhood wounds, the pains that we hold inside of us, we heal them by feeling them. When
Mm.
we feel them, they reveal to us something. And then that takes us to a deeper place, and that takes us to a place of empathy, of compassion. And then when we can start feeling that for ourselves, we can start feeling that for others. And I would say empathy and is the beginning of kind of love, like having some connection with feeling, like that I can connect to your feelings, even though, you know, it's not a comfortable feeling. But if I'm trying to fix you or I'm
Mm.
trying to fix me, I can't be with that pain. And then I don't feel that really deep empathic connection when
Mm.
I'm just sitting with you
Yeah.
when you're in pain. I don't even know what to say.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know what you're going through. This is so hard. And maybe it's overwhelming. And yes, it's, yeah. So being able to sit like that with ourselves and with others.
Mm.
So that pain takes us to a deeper connection with our own soul and our self and our heart. And it takes us to a place of, like I said, empathy. And I'd say that would maybe be the beginning of love. I can't really talk about love, except that I know that love and pain are connected. But
Mm.
that's about as far as I've gotten. Maybe some empathy.
Yeah, thank you. You have said so much, a lot about love. You've shared a very beautiful preliminary foundation for a realistic love project. Because again, Krishna consciousness is all about love. But if we don't get the preliminaries and foundation also in place, all that you are sharing, our love project may be just spiritual bypassing. And
It
we may
can
have
be.
a totally fictional idea of what's love, as we may have a totally fictional idea of what's pain. No, well, because
Exactly.
as you say, as when one you repress one emotion, you repress the others. I will argue, when you misread what pain is about, you misread what love is about. No,
Yes.
and if
Yes.
you misread what love is about, and your whole life is around the idea of divine love, you may be practicing with a misconceived notion of what's all that. And if your notion is wrong, maybe your practice is not properly guided, and what to speak of the fruit you will be tasting.
Yeah.
That's what makes me remember, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, once he will say, he's speaking about different anarthas.
Uh,
And usually we think anarthas are lust, greed, envy, and I'm not saying they are not, but he will say first, tattva Brahma, which means to be bewildered about what is what, about reality, about truth, to have wrong ideas about reality. That can really be an anartha. That can really get in the way of your life, of your practice, of your experience. If you
can
want
I
to say
say something
something,
about it? Yeah,
of
yeah.
course, of
Because
course.
just when you said that, you know, that brought up to me what I named as the first anarta in my books. And I
Okay.
named the first anarta as denial. And interestingly enough, the first thing that Lord Brahma created was denial.
Mm.
Because we can't live in this world without
Mm.
some form of denial.
Mm.
We go crazy. So there has to be
Mm.
some level of
Mm.
denial
Mm.
to even like, otherwise would all just want to kill ourselves.
It's too much. Yeah. Yeah.
So there has to be some form of denial, but that denial does not get us in touch with the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually keeps us away from the truth.
Yeah.
But it was designed so that we can now, little by little,
Mm.
as we can digest it,
Mm.
look at the truth and be a little honest with ourselves, little by little,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we can't do it all at once.
Yeah.
It's too overwhelming.
Yeah.
Krishna
Truth is
is
too
so
much. Yeah.
amazingly overwhelming. Krishna
Krishna.
is so overwhelming.
Yeah. For
We
himself,
got
even. Krishna is too much for himself.
so we got to little get it in little pieces, and
Yes.
that's why there's some denial, and then you can take out a piece and work with that, and then you can take another piece and then another piece like that.
Mm.
That's Krishna's kindness, because he knows we're jiva tattva, and he knows we
Mm.
can easily get overwhelmed and covered over, and so
Mm.
he's patient with us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I needed to say that about the
No.
truth and denial.
Great. Thank you. Beautiful. I haven't yet read your books, though I've saw that that's how I get to know you. I didn't mention that when I was in Switzerland. I saw a few. I mean, I always see books and I go to the books. Let's see what the book is about. And the books were there. And I just went to the index and I was like, oh, wow, who is this person? Who is this person? So my point with this is that I didn't know about that you started with that point, but so it's beautiful that again, without knowing,
Yeah, well, that's in
we, we-
the second.
yeah,
That's in the
without
second.
that speaks about how universal are these things, and intuitively, if you are honest, you will reach those places even without knowing that Bhaktivinoda Thakur said this or Brahma said
Ex-
that. Because
exactly.
that's how reality operates. So if you are honest
Yeah.
in your search, you will reach those places, and you will find other people reaching those same conclusions from different traditions,
Yeah.
from different places,
Yes.
and that kind of
Yes.
validates. Okay, that's how things work. That's how reality
Yes.
operates.
Yes.
But as
Yes.
I appreciate what you mentioned, Sukhavaha, about bit by bit, and gradually,
Yes.
because also truth is too much, Krishna is too much in the good sense of the term, but it can
Yes.
be
Yes.
too much. And that's also a form of self-compassion, right? Like understanding that the process is gradual and not trying to
Yes.
push ourselves to become self-realizing in a weekend or even in a lifetime, because even again, reality is
Yeah.
ever evolving, love is ever evolving, so we will never
Yes.
like get it completely and that's it.
No, there's
that's
nowhere to get.
that's not, yeah, exactly. And I really appreciated going back to something you said a few minutes ago, your point on pain and love, and how we basically cannot separate one from the other. And many times, one of our main misconceptions is that we idealize love without any form of pain, and that
Exactly.
and that gives again a distorted definition of both love and pain. Because
Exactly.
you just want love without pain. There is not such a thing, and you think that pain can never be with love, so you try to avoid such a thing.
You push it away. You
Yeah.
suppress it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of thinking one should include the other, I should look for the pain that includes love and for the love that includes pain. And as you pointed to the gopis, I mean, the highest ideal in our tradition are giving that. And I say that to the devotees many times. No, if you be careful to not become in a, what you say basically, pain denier, because
Yeah.
the place we want to go for eternity is full of pain. But all
Yes.
that pain is happening in the context of love. It's a contextualized
Yes.
pain. So
Yes.
since we do not love, we hear the word pain and we freak out and we say, no, no, and then
Right.
I don't want to go there. Maybe I should go to Vaikuntha or to Brahman or some heavenly
Exactly.
planets. Heavenly planets probably is an option. But
Yes.
I appreciate your point of, I always remember one of my mentors, Richard Rohr, Christian Franciscan author, friend of
Yes.
mine also. He will say there are two things that open our hearts fully: great pain, great love.
Yes. I
like
love that. I
like
love
basically
that.
saying in one sense the two are one, but they may come in different from different perspective, but it's one same thing open our hearts, right? So
And I have to say that Krishna did that to me. He gave me great pain,
mm,
which really opened my heart, and then I could see, wow,
yeah,
that was such a gift. Thank you, Krishna.
yeah,
But I mean, I would have never chosen that, and it really did hurt a lot.
yeah,
But that was his great love giving me great pain to
mm,
motivate me to move.
yeah.
Yeah.
And pain also brings us to the present moment, right? Because it's in
Oh
your
yeah.
face, you cannot not
Yeah.
feel it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you have really to be present and pay attention to what's happening. And when
Yeah.
that's not there, we so easily become distracted and
Oh yeah.
evasive.
Oh yeah. Everything's fine, and
Yeah.
I'm up here and
And
floating away.
yeah, and so much escapism in the name of
Yeah. Yeah.
transcendental bliss, so to say.
Yes.
So yeah,
Yes.
I
Yeah.
appreciate your nuanced point of pain and love. Like love includes a type of suffering, so it's I like to call like a paradoxical bliss. No, it's there's
Yeah. It
bliss, but
is.
it somehow includes suffering. So it's paradoxical. It's not in the usual way we think of
Yeah.
things,
And it's a
black and white,
suffering that.
exclusive to one another, but it's inclusive of everything. That's for me the reality of the highest reality is totally inclusive. So there must be pain, and somehow pain find its way. It's included in the equation, but in a way that is healthy. No?
Yes. And you can even see if anybody lost a close parent or friend or
Mm,
sibling or a guru, you know, you lost somebody that was so close to you.
mhm.
Naturally, you feel pain
Yeah,
and grief.
yeah,
That's to show the love. If you didn't feel
exactly,
anything, well, I'm
exactly.
not attached,
Mhm.
then non attachment is not the goal.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
love is the goal.
Yeah,
But if we're looking for that goal of love without pain, that's more impersonalism. Actually, that's like a really, that's what the Brahma Jyoti, the
mm,
place where
mm,
you don't feel any. It's all, hey,
mm.
what, I don't know what it is, but I think it's boring, pretty boring.
Yeah. I appreciate your point that how pain somehow confirms our love in so many ways,
Yes,
and I really
yes,
like your point of speaking about japa a few minutes ago and sit with your pain. No? For many of us, japa is not like that. No, although we
yeah,
come with our pain to the sitting, but many times japa becomes more like an escape from pain or evasiveness of pain. But it's no confrontation of that sitting, not on top of that, on that, but sitting with that. And
with it.
praying, of
Yeah,
course, not just sitting with it, but praying,
yes,
opening our
yes,
hearts and
yes,
being present. So I think
yes,
a healthy way
yes.
to also conceive prayer and this type of inner work, like sit
Yeah.
with your pain, sit with your emotions. And in this connection, Sukhabaha, remember we have been in our, I think it was our previous conversation we have in relation to the mind. Let's go to the mind for a minute.
Okay.
And Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita force, he says, for example, in Bhagavad Gita 6:6, for who he for he whose mind is controlled, the mind is the best friend. If the mind is not under control, it's the worst enemy. Personally, sometimes I think that we overemphasize that the mind is the worst enemy to the point that it remains the worst enemy, and we are not
Absolutely.
emphasize so much the potential of the mind to become best friend, because ultimately the mind is not like another person in our head or something. It's just like psychic subtle matter that reacts according to how we are feeding it, right? I like to give the example of
Yes.
the stomach, no, physical stomach.
Yes.
We may eat junk food for 3 days, and we will end up saying, oh, the stomach is killing me. But
Yes.
the stomach is not killing you, you're killing your stomach. And the stomach is just reacting. There's nobody else in the stomach, it's reacting to your killing it. So for me, the mind is kind of the stomach of our subtle body. So
Ah.
if you are feeding it with junk food, junk thoughts or impressions or who knows what, we will
Uh-huh.
feel, oh, my mind is killing me, my mind is my worst
Uh-huh.
enemy. But actually, I'm
Yes.
being the worst enemy of my mind by treating the mind so poorly, so badly. So,
Yeah.
of course, again, that's why Krishna said the mind can be your best friend if you become the best
Yeah.
friend of your mind. So, my
Yeah.
question, what I'm coming is like, in your experience, if the mind can be both our greatest ally, our worst enemy? What shifts in perspective are required to transform the mind into a friend? In other words, what will look like to fully trust the mind as a bridge to Krishna rather than an obstacle?
Okay, well, I wouldn't say that I would fully trust the mind, but the mind is I compare it to like a computer screen.
Okay.
Like you compare it to the stomach, I compare it to a computer screen,
Mhm.
and whatever program you're playing, that's what's showing on the screen.
Mm.
And we do have choice of the programs that we play. However, we don't necessarily take that choice. Now, the mind, again, is not, it's not against us,
Mhm.
but it gives us a lot of information, and a lot of the information our mind gives us
Mhm.
is from the past,
Yeah.
from our past experiences,
Mhm.
from our past lives,
Mhm.
from our and it's designed for survival. The
Okay.
mind brain. I'm going to talk about the mind brain,
Okay.
the brain body duo, that it's designed for protection. That part of the mind. Now, some aspects of that are important. Like if there's some danger,
Mhm.
immediately we will get the message, run or do something, or and that's there to protect us. However, the mind gets carried away because it doesn't quite know who is the real owner.
Mm.
And when we're on autopilot,
Mm.
just allowing the mind to go, when we're on autopilot, the mind takes over. It takes charge because it's an automatic thing. So the way we learn to, and I like to use the word manage rather than control,
Mm.
the way we manage our mind is by understanding it
Mhm.
and understanding ourselves. And let's see, looking at the programs that are in our mind.
Mm.
Now, a lot of the quote unquote mind is the unconscious.
Mhm.
And so, it's the parts that are unconscious that trip us up. When we're unconscious, when we're on autopilot, when things in our unconscious are just speaking to us and we're not even hearing them, they're just telling us what to do. We're walking in the dark,
Mhm.
and we're tripping. We're
Yeah.
tripping and we're hurting ourselves. And then we're angry. So we need to turn the light on and really be able to see,
Mhm.
like, well, what are you telling me? And where does that come from? And do I really want to believe that? And is that really true? And as we start questioning the mind, we can learn a lot about ourselves and about our beliefs. And then we can actually reprogram our brain. And then we can use the mind to help us reprogram the brain. So
Mhm.
we do that because the mind wants to serve us. It's designed to serve us, to help us survive. But it thinks that even our false ego aspects are us.
Mhm.
So it's defending our false ego aspects. Now, when we take a little bit more responsibility as a soul, then we can start asking the questions, my dear mind, I'm practicing being a devotee, and a devotee isn't supposed to be angry, but I'm feeling angry right now. My dear mind, you know, what's this anger about? Where's this coming from? Kind of getting a sense of it. And then even saying, what else could I do now? What other choices do I have? What other options do I have? What else could I do besides being angry?
Mhm.
And your mind will come up with some answers. And then you say, okay, be calm, be peaceful. Okay, thank you, dear mind. Now, how might I practice being calm and peaceful right now, my dear mind? Oh, well, why don't you take a few deep breaths and just slow down for a minute? Okay. Because we're not asking the mind questions, it's not going to come up with anything new. It's going to come up with the old programs.
Mm-hmm.
So when we take responsibility for asking the questions and managing the questions like doing a podcast, instead of just letting everybody just ramble on about anything, we have questions.
Mm.
And those questions direct the conversation. When we're curious and we ask the mind questions, it can come up with some interesting answers. Curiosity is the cure to judgmentalism, self
Mm.
judgment or a judgmentalism of others. And the mind is designed to judge in order to keep us safe.
Mm-hmm.
So we even judge ourselves for having a mind or judge the thoughts that go through our mind. But we could, instead of judging, we could just practice saying, my dear mind, where is that judgment coming from?
Mm-hmm.
Where did that belief come from? And being curious, and it will try to help us. And then it can become our friend when we ask the questions. If we don't ask the questions, we're on we're on autopilot, and then the mind just
Yeah.
does
Yeah.
repetitive things that keep us in the material world.
Mm.
And then we think it's our enemy, but it's
Mhm.
not really our enemy.
Yeah. We can be our
I don't know.
we can only be our worst enemy. Yeah, it's not there's no need to ascribe that to anyone else. Yeah, I really like your point of curiosity being the cure for judgmentalism, and the importance of doing the right presenting the right questions. No, not only in terms to the mind, but in life itself. Even the other day we were having a Q&A with some devotees here. I like to call it Q&E, quest and
Yes,
exploration, not so much questions
yes,
and answers,
I
because the
love that.
conversation is
Yes,
ongoing. And we were talking about that. I was trying to begin with to encourage them to, it's glorious that you have questions, of course, not out of fear, not out of, okay, I have to have a question, and not just to fit into the statu quo, but just try to be creative and curious, as you say, and explore, because the
yes,
right question can evoke such a new answer that even the answerer, in the dynamic
yes,
of the class that we were having, I was like, if you have a very good question, I may end up saying things that I would have never ever thought about, and I will be amazed at what's coming through me, not
yes,
because of me,
yeah,
but through
yeah,
me, maybe because of your question. So
yes,
I'm just a vessel, like a kid. I'm being, yeah, instrumental, and the trigger was the right question. And I like to always highlight how in the Bhagavatam, many times Sukadev Goswami answers something to Parikshit, and then Parikshit Maharaj has another question and another question. Because of
yes,
his good questions is that we have the whole Bhagavatam. If he wouldn't have so
yes,
many good questions, the Bhagavatam will be a few verses, and that's it. And the same with Bhagavad
exactly.
Gita and Arjuna's questions. And every time Parikshit Maharaj comes with a question, Sukadev Goswami, mostly I've seen in almost every time, every case, before replying to the question, Sukadev Goswami is praising the question. It's praising the
Ah,
quality of the inquiry and the curiosity,
ah,
basically. It's praising Parikshit
ah,
and the question. The guru is praising the question of the disciples, so to say. For me, that's
ah,
a very healthy, clear pattern given in the Bhat and about what you are mentioning here, right? Curiosity,
ah.
and how healing that is, and how important it is to write. So because sometimes in our minds we are more concerned with answers than with questions, right? We want to
Yeah,
go quickly
yeah,
quickly to the answer. Give me the answer, give me the solution, but I
yes,
don't care to have the right question first. I don't even know what's the question, but give me the answer. Something.
exactly. And in regards to questions, you know, questions stimulate creativity and growth. So if you look at little kids, they're asking all the questions all the time.
and,
Why
and
this
that's
and why
so
that?
that's so
Why?
uncomfortable for us adults. Stop asking, no, because yeah,
Yes,
they are reminding us how stagnant we are and how uncurious we are.
exactly, exactly. But they grow like in leaps and bounds because of their curiosity and their interest in wanting to know. But we want to know so that we can shut it down. I got the answer. I got the box.
Yes.
I'm done. Now I can
Yes.
relax.
Certitude, which becomes like an addiction. I can become addicted to
Yes,
cert. I
yes,
always love to
yes,
quote when also Father Richard Rowe will ask, what's the opposite of faith, right? And most people may say, okay, doubt or something like that. And he'll say, no, the opposite of faith is certitude, right?
Ah, I love
Yeah,
that.
he makes that point.
I
The
love
opposite of
that.
faith is certitude. The real faith journey is not about being certain about everything, but it's a
Ah,
journey into the unknown. It's like
wow.
addressing mystery. Krishna is, in one sense, eternally mysterious, also.
Yes, yes, yes,
So faith,
yes,
because but
yes.
many of us understood faith as a journey of certitude, having the right beliefs, again, ideas, what to do, what not to do. By doing that, I'm saved, and I become so toxically certain that I stop being curious, basically. And in our tradition,
Yeah.
something that I like to highlight is there's one line say rasa sar chamatkar, or the essence of rasa. Rasa is the highest form of love. Is chamatkar, and chamatkar in Sanskrit means astonishment. So the essence of
Ah,
the highest love is a perpetual sense of astonishment, which is goes hand by hand with curiosity. And like Jesus
yes,
will say,
yes,
unless you become a child, you cannot enter into the kingdom of God. You have to remain
yes,
open like that,
yes,
right?
yes, yes. Beautiful, 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 beautiful. I really like that. I like that. The opposite of faith is certitude. Oh my gosh, I'm
Yeah.
remembering that
I
one.
saw, I saw,
That's
I
a
saw you like that one. I love that one
yeah,
as well. I love to share that with people because I always, of course. So what's the opposite of faith? Anyone goes doubt or this,
yeah,
and nobody says certitude. So that's what, of course, what I'm
yeah,
looking.
yeah, yeah.
That's what I'm looking for. So then, the opposite of
Yeah.
faith is certitude, and there's like silence, right? And
Yeah,
everyone
it's
is
like,
like having
whoa.
their aha moment, epiphany. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Going back to the mind for a moment, Sukhabaha, I'm thinking
Uh-huh.
in connection to this, and also I remember we talked about this idea of connecting with Krishna in the heart, which is what
Yeah,
both of us consider very important aspect of our life and our practice and our daily developing relationship and conversation with God. So, as you may have heard, also many people and devotees in our community may hesitate to trust their inner connection with Krishna because, again, going back to the mind, they fear, oh no, maybe that's just the mind speaking. So, the
yes.
classical question that we may have asked that many times, and I'd like to ask you today as well, is how we can discern uh, Krishna's voice in the heart from the voice of the mind or the ego, etc. Give us
Yeah.
some short, powerful answer so everyone can keep that as a mantra with them, some sutra that will accompany them and clarify the landscape.
Okay, well, I'll do my best. I don't know how sure it's going to be, but the one thing is, I'll first of all tell you about the mind because that's easier to distinguish.
Yes.
The mind is pretty repetitive. It'll say the same things
Mhm.
over and over, maybe in different tones or
Many
um,
times, not
variations.
even in much difference, right? Many times it's just
No, no, not much difference, but like
yeah,
sometimes it has a little
yeah, some
variation
nuance
there, but
counts. Yeah.
it's very super repetitive. Okay, so that is not the voice of Super Soul. Now, Super Soul is sometimes like the still small voice. So it's small, but it comes as like an intuition.
Hmm.
And if you consider the intuition, that doesn't sound repetitive. Maybe there's something there. And then be curious about it. Well, what is that about? Sometimes, though, when you'll hear the voice of Super Soul, it's kind of like an aha moment. It's like, you know, yeah, what that person is saying is actually the absolute truth, and you know it.
Hmm.
And then you're like, oh yeah, it is.
Hmm.
So so it's the voice of truth
Hmm.
if you're willing to acknowledge the truth
Hmm.
and be open to the truth. But sometimes we argue with that voice of truth and we justify what we're doing, and we have this inner argument inside, and Krishna's like, okay, you're not ready. And then
Yeah.
he
He
won't.
doesn't want to impose himself either. Yeah.
Yes, he won't impose himself. So distinguishing the repetitive voices, and then when we hear those inclinations, those little still small voice, just be curious about them. You don't have to immediately go out and do it, but you could be curious. And it's like, hmm, that's interesting. I wonder, yeah, I wonder about that and be curious about it. Then it can expand and then you can start to hear. And sometimes, Krishna doesn't speak that much,
Mhm.
he's trying to speak to us all the time, but
Yeah,
depending on where we
he's
are,
yeah,
we
he's a
can't.
gentleman also. He's very humble, he's very respectful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And if we're very, very busy,
Mm.
we might not have the space to hear Krishna
Mm.
because busyness, then we have to like think, okay, and we're up here, and when we're up here, it's hard to hear because Krishna and consciousness is really
Uh,
from our heart, not from our head.
that's the whole thing, Sukhavaha, because you mentioned, okay, if we are too busy, uh, and of course sometimes it's not even the external business but how our mind is engaged, and we live in an age that there's so much business and so much mind scattering, right? Like so much
Oh yeah,
multitasking
oh yeah,
with technology, with social media. I was talking again today with a friend with this scrolling and seeing like
yeah,
7 second videos one after another talking about different
oh
things.
yeah.
So we are
That
losing so much the capacity to be present, to pay attention, to
yes,
listen, to listen
yes,
to what already been
yes,
told us. So it's a
yes.
whole another conversation. I don't want to go there that much today, but I personally feel, and we made a podcast in the past about this with Namrasa Prabhu, that in one sense we have these four regulative principles, but we should include a fifth one now in relation to how to deal with social media and technology, because that's affecting us so much. That can be intoxicating. That can be, we can break all the
Yes,
principles. We can be untruthful in how we present ourselves through that, and intoxication of so many types, distortion, and that's really
yes,
reshaping our brains and our minds, and
absolutely,
and
absolutely.
making us so scattered, especially those generations who are born
Yes,
from the womb
yes.
literally receiving that dynamic. So again, it's a big conversation, but I think by contrast, yesterday these days we are here in New Zealand. I'm in New Zealand when I'm recording this. We are given a series of lectures on the third verse of Shikshastakam, and
Ah, my favorite.
yes, my favorite as well, the golden rule of the golden Lord. We are talking about it, giving us a golden opportunity, and how Mahaprabhu just is looking at the grass and looking at the tree, and he's listening. He's receiving a lesson from them. Oh, be as humble as I am, says the grass. Be as tolerant as I am, says. But he's actually he's seeing a guru there. He's seeing guru everywhere.
Yes,
But because
yes,
he's present and he can listen, no. Of course, that verse represents also the stage of nishta, when you are more present, more stable, so you can really capture what again super soul is trying to tell you, as you were saying.
right.
But yeah, as you say, if we are not present and listening, the message is there, but we are not there.
Yes, we are not there. Yes, yes,
And we say,
yes,
Krishna,
yes.
where are you? Krishna, where are you? And the,
Yeah,
the,
yeah.
the
And
echo will
Krishna's like,
say,
where are
where are
you?
you? Right. Wow. In connect,
Yeah, the same thing with chanting. We're chanting, chanting. Where are you? And Krishna's like, I'm right here.
yeah, non different from the name. So I never go. I never
Yeah,
went anywhere. I like to make this play of words like, okay, Krishna is omnipresent, right? So if Krishna is
yes,
omnipresent, there's
yes.
not a place, there's not a moment he is not. So if
Present.
I cannot feel the presence of someone who is omnipresent, that means that I am omniabsent,
Ah, right,
right? Because he's
right.
everywhere, always and everywhere. So it's not so much about where are you, but where am I? Yeah. So again, we go back to
Yeah.
introspection then. So behind,
Present,
sorry.
conscious. Yeah, being present, being conscious.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Krishna consciousness. It has to do a lot about that expression itself, being present to Krishna, who is always present, right? Regarding the mind, what we were talking, what will you say to someone regarding this situation of, okay, listening to the mind, listening to Krishna in the heart? What will you say to someone who is struggling to give themselves permission to approach Krishna with faith and confidence, especially if they feel unworthy? No? Maybe we are going now to the direction of unworthiness, self worth, and related topics.
Yeah. Well, Krishna is a person, and we can consider he's our dearmost father, our dearmost friend. And if we don't feel a connection, we can just start to talk to Krishna as a friend.
Mm-hmm.
Like, without all the flowery words and the
Mm-hmm.
obeisances and all that. It's just like, this is a really tough day, Krishna. I don't really like the way you designed this day. What is going on here? Like, even just having that kind of a conversation, but directing it towards Krishna. Krishna can handle any way we talk, and he really likes when we talk to him. So prayer is when we talk to Krishna, and we're talking to Krishna, and he likes that because we're approaching Krishna. And it even says in the scripture, you can approach with any
Yeah.
desire, but just approach Krishna. So we can even approach in any mood. But as we start to just talk to Krishna as a friend, it's like, oh gosh, this is so overwhelming, Krishna. What should I do? Just like talking to Krishna, like a friend, like a person who's right there with you.
Mm.
That's I think that's what saved me
Mm.
in my early spiritual life, because I was put out alone on parking lots with there was no cell phones at that time and no communication. And if things didn't work out, I had to find my own ride, hitch
Mm.
a ride somewhere else. And many different circumstances happened, and I didn't have anybody there. It was just me and Krishna. And so I did talk to Krishna a lot because it was like, what do I do? I mean, I want to talk to somebody, and you're the only one here. So it really, I feel it was a blessing, although it was challenging, just to start talking to Krishna
Mm.
as a person.
Mm.
There's no right way to talk to
Mhm.
Krishna.
Mhm.
And he sees us in every single moment of our life. So he knows all the good, the bad, the ugly. So we don't have to put on a mask with Krishna.
Mhm.
We can talk to Krishna just where we are. Even if we're frustrated or angry, we can say that.
Mm.
And it relationship starts that
Thank you.
relationship. So prayer, we can just
Mhm.
say little prayers to Krishna, and that starts our connection. Krishna, I don't
Mhm.
know how to pray,
Mhm.
but I'd like to learn how to pray.
Mhm.
There you go. That's the prayer.
You're already praying.
You just
Yeah.
start with, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. It reminds me this there's some practice in mystical Christianity. They call it the practice of the presence. And maybe it mostly has to do with, again, praying, but in those little moments throughout the day. It can be a micro prayer of 10 seconds where you address Krishna in
Yes,
ways like you share. It's not like, okay, I have to wait for the official moment of prayer. I'm down on my knees. I'm chanting my japa. No, no, you're cooking potatoes in the shower, in whatever, in the parking lot.
yes,
And he's always
yes, yes,
available, right? As you say, he's always
yes,
available.
yes,
And I really value your emphasis on addressing the divine as a friend, huh? Because that's so accessible. Many times we have so much unresolved trauma with authority figures and parental figures, and that
oh yes,
we have
yes, yes,
our wounds with mom and dad, and we somehow unconsciously project that to the ultimate father or the ultimate mother, and
yes,
that
yes,
gets in the way. So
yes,
friendly approach, and Krishna himself is saying in the Gita, I don't know, at the end of the fifth chapter, Suhridam Sarvabhutanam, I'm the well wishing friend of every living entity. So he himself is saying,
wow,
I like to be a friend. So it's not so much, okay, you need to approach me as a friend. Okay, I give you that. No, no. I like to see myself as a friend of everyone. So probably
yes,
if we approach
yes,
him as a friend, he will like that as well. So it will be a good combination.
yes, 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 yes,
And,
yes.
and for me, this idea of Krishna as a friend also, of course, takes me to some other point that I like to share with you, and I like to share with everyone, basically. And many times I think it's probably one of the most healing mm, points or ideas that we need to address in our times in our community, which is the fact that Krishna already loves us. No, that we are loved by
Yeah.
Krishna, that we are accepted
Yeah.
already by him, that he's again, that's
Yeah.
another way of saying he's our friend, right? He's the
Yes.
friend of everyone, and not only my friend, not only the friend of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, but everyone's friend,
Yes.
right? To
Yes.
keep it
Yes.
universal and not make it exclusivistic. It's so nice, Krishna, that you love me, but not him and
Yes.
her. Please don't show causeless mercy over there. They do not deserve that. With me, it's nice. It feels right. So, which is challenging in itself. But anyhow, for me it's very important in healing this, go into these places of internal place of, okay, Krishna loves me, Krishna accepts me fully, no, not from a place that creates complacency and I remain there. On the contrary, I mean, he's loving me
No, no.
without me maybe doing anything to deserve that, but he's already, so
Exactly.
naturally that will be moving me to reciprocate in the best, from the best possible place. Because if we don't feel that we are loved by Krishna, we may be trying to approach him out of fear, out of intimidation. So he loves us one day, so
Yes.
he likes me
Yes.
someday.
Yes.
And the
Yes.
approach in itself may be neurotic in nature.
Yes.
So
Yes. Yes.
having that foundation in place, Krishna already is your best, well-wishing friend. He loves you. That takes away so much baggage from our shoulders, and we can approach the practice and the relationship with him from way more relaxed and way more natural and way more moved in our heart and willing to reciprocate voluntarily, right? So, and
Yes.
that for me gives so much self-worth. No, I want to go there. No, self-worth rooted
Yeah.
on the fact that you are already loved, you're already accepted by the most important person. So what's for you the connection between self-worth and seeing ourselves as developed parts of Krishna? How does this shift impact our relationships, spiritual life?
Great. Um, you know, there's a part of Krishna that each one of us has trouble
Hmm,
connecting with.
hmm,
And that part happens to be ourself, our own little soul self. And if there's this part of Krishna that Krishna gave me or
yeah.
awarded me or made me, I'm this part of Krishna and I feel anything but love for this part of Krishna,
Hmm,
I'm stuck. I can't really love any other part
hmm,
because this is the part that I'm here to connect with.
hmm,
And so like really getting in really deeply and understanding like what parts of me don't I like and why don't I like them and what am I making that mean? And usually those parts are not, the soul parts.
hmm,
Those are misconceptions of who I think that I am.
hmm,
But we're afraid that if I'm not those good parts and I'm just that awful part, then oh my gosh, I don't know what to do with that.
hmm,
Again,
hmm,
being with that pain, and the pain is that I am a jiva.
hmm,
That pain is that I am not perfect. That pain is that I make mistakes.
hmm,
That pain is that sometimes I hurt people. That pain is grief and sadness and regret for all the things that we did that we wished we didn't do.
hmm,
So when we can be with those pains and heal those pains and those parts and reconnect those painful parts and love those parts,
hmm, hmm,
accept those
yeah.
parts because Krishna accepts them and we can accept them and love
Hmm,
them. It opens up our heart chakra
hmm,
and it opens up the world of being able to um, love others
hmm,
and love Krishna. But this is a big block. If I can't love this part
hmm,
that's closest to me,
hmm,
I'm stuck.
hmm.
I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Hmm. That's interesting because what I'm thinking is, in one sense, first, we may not be loving Krishna that much yet. We may not be loving other people that much yet. And probably all that is because we're not loving ourselves much yet. In one sense, it all
Yeah,
begins at home. Of course,
it does.
so in one sense, it will be the sequence should be first love yourself and then try to love Krishna. But love yourself knowing that Krishna loves you. No, I will add that footnote to that. Like begin with the idea of
Yes,
Krishna loves you, then try to love yourself, and of course love yourself as not separate from Krishna. So
right,
if I really love
right.
myself, I will be loving to Krishna, and if I really love Krishna, I will be loving to myself, and of course to everyone else by extension, right? So
Yeah.
yeah,
It's a tough one because there's a lot of pained parts in there
yeah,
that we don't really
yeah,
that we don't acknowledge. And I always tell people, "Do you think Krishna makes a mistake?" No, Krishna doesn't make any mistake. Well, he made you,
yeah,
so you must not be a mistake.
hmm,
But we consider that we're a
yeah,
mistake because we make mistakes.
hmm,
And so instead of like I made a mistake, I
I
start to
I am the mistake.
conceive of myself, I am a mistake, and that's
Yeah.
shame.
I was going to say that word, shame. The difference between
And
healthy guilt and shame, right?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And that's the second anartha that I named,
Okay.
shame,
Okay. Yeah.
because that also keeps us from wanting to look any deeper because it hurts too much because we got this shame
Yeah. We
image.
are over identify with the shadow, right?
Shame.
I didn't do
Yes.
something bad. I am bad.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
crippling. That's crippling and it all
Even
pervading
the
in one
thought,
sense. Yeah.
even the thought I left Krishna,
Uh-huh.
you know?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. That's a
So
whole thing. Yeah, totally.
yeah.
So for me, it's
So
so
it's
redeeming to recalibrate, as the GPS will say, recalculating,
yes,
and
yes, yes.
instead of going in that direction, understand, no, you are amazing, as Krishna tells us in the Gita. The soul is wonderful. You are
Yeah,
loved, and you have
yeah.
imperfections. You are not imperfection. You have them, and you are being loved, imperfections included. So, and the way to
Yes,
the way to the healing is through the imperfection, through the wound, as they say,
yes,
no, wounded
yes,
wounded
yes,
healers. And for me, then
yes.
vulnerability is such an important word, that in this case, not to embrace my imperfections, to acknowledge that I'm being embraced in my imperfection by Krishna, and develop a healthy sense of identity where, again, I'm okay with my imperfections. I'm at peace with them, and I know myself to be loved. So I don't need to cling to false identities, like over augmented, trying to be more of what I am, or even trying to be less of what I am, but just trying
Yes,
to
yes,
be
yes.
who I am and be okay with that. As simple as that sounds, be yourself. It may sound like a new agey
Oh
hippie
yeah.
like one liner, but that's a tough one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Very tough. I think it's the toughest one.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I remember when,
And also
yes, yes.
because in our tradition we say, not to be selfish. You shouldn't be selfish.
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't think about yourself. So then I shouldn't love myself. That's
Mm-hmm.
selfish. And that whole concept really,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I'm not saying, loving myself separate from Krishna, loving
That's the
myself
thing,
as a part of Krishna.
which is who
And
I
if I
am.
can't love, yes, and if I can't love this part of Krishna, how am I going to love Krishna?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I always share this beautiful quote by Dorothy Day. She's a Christian contemporary mystic, and she will say,
Okay.
I only love God as much as I love the person I love the least. And
Yes.
I like to add to that, many times the person I love the least is me.
Often,
So I only love
yes,
God as much as I love myself. No? Because again, it's all
yes,
interconnected. So I can only love
yes,
myself
yes,
in connection to Krishna. We cannot just
yes.
like create a forced separation between anything. Everything is interconnected,
No,
right?
it is
and
totally,
and I was,
totally.
yeah, yeah, including imperfections, like we were sharing these days, this kintsugi art in Japan, that they break these pots, and instead of
Uh
throwing
huh.
them, they put them together and fill the brokenness with liquid gold. They
Yes,
highlight the brokenness as part of the journey, basically, right? So that's
yes.
powerful image.
And the rug weavers in the Muslim countries, they always weave in imperfections to remind them that they are not perfect like God.
That's
They
nice. Yeah,
purposely
I
didn't.
remember also
Yeah.
that about, I don't remember which painting, but one painter did once a painter that could be considered perfect, and he did
Uh-huh.
like something like he gave some stroke on the side which is not perfect, just to make the difference between him and God, basically. Like, so that's a
Yes.
healthy
Yes.
reminder.
Yes.
And in connection
Yes.
to this, Sukhavaha, I remember we were talking in our first conversation in relation to not being okay with who we are. And sometimes in our tradition, we see, and not in only in our tradition, in every parts of the world, certain people in religious circles taking positions of leadership that are required, authority, guidance. But many times we end up, how to say, creating a character as a guru, as a sannyasi, as a whatever, as a mother. I mean, we all hold positions of authority. So sometimes, how to say, we may be in an over idealized situation, especially if you are a guru or something like that. And especially if the
Yeah.
whole community is over expecting from you to be some kind of local superhero. And you, with
Right.
good intention, you may enter into subscribe to that, trying to help others, but somehow it starts, the character, the superhero, the projection starts to become your identity, and it's a whole identity trap. And you may in time have some human problems, imperfections you need to embrace, to share, but it's like, I cannot do that because that will break the character, the
Yeah.
mask.
Yeah.
So and I don't
Yes.
know who else I will be. I remember you mentioned that to me. I
Yes.
don't know who I
Yes.
am. And
Yes.
of course, nobody wants to enter that place where we don't have an identity, because that's terrifying. That's madness.
Yes.
So
Yes.
how
Yes.
do we face that situation, that terrifying unknown of, I know that I'm getting trapped into a false identity, into a mask. I need to break that down, but I need to keep some sense of identity, because if not, I don't know what can happen. It sounds like neurosis.
Yes. Well, I could go at this at two different angles. Let's just start with, generally we hold on to the masks because there are security,
Yeah.
like you said.
Yeah.
If we're afraid of um, becoming proud, that can be a big protection. I mean, Prabhupada himself prayed in front of the deities, and
Mhm.
someone said, "What are you praying?" "Oh, I'm praying, please protect me from Maya."
Mm.
And the devotee said, you don't need to pray that. You're not in Maya." And
Mm.
he said, "The difference between me and you is I have a healthy fear of Maya and you
Mm.
don't."
Mm.
So, really understanding, just how Jiva we are and how we can be so subtly impacted. And usually the material energy doesn't come at us through the front door.
Mm.
She comes at us just in little chunks of breaking of integrity. "Oh, it's not a big deal. Oh, they said you were great, and you made a mistake and you didn't say it, and just, oh, well, that's not it. Oh, that's not a big deal.
Mhm.
Oh, that's not a big deal." So I'll give the example of integrity and how important integrity is in spiritual life. So if we're on a plane in New York and we're flying to India, let's say the plane is off course 1%.
Mhm.
No big deal, 1%.
Mm.
But as you fly,
Mm.
that 1%, the longer you fly at 1%
You ended up
off
in another
course,
planet, yeah.
or another country.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's how the material energy gets us. And so integrity, and we can say honesty,
Mhm.
is such an important aspect of being conscious and being Krishna conscious, because it's just a little white lie. Oh, little white lie.
Mm. Mm.
Oh, not a big deal. Not a big deal. But then it becomes a habit. And then, now you've told a lie, and now you have to tell a lie to cover that other lie. And then that gets complicated, and you got to remember what you lied about. And then you're like, and then it becomes a habit, and then you have to defend your life, and it just complicates life. So integrity is what helps us to stay grounded and sober. So being vulnerable
Mhm.
and being in integrity those two things protect us.
Mhm.
Just like curiosity protects us from judgmentalism,
Mhm.
vulnerability and integrity protect us from pride, because it's like, oh, I made a mistake again. Okay.
Mhm.
Oh, that wasn't really a nice thing to say. Oh, did I forget? Oh my gosh, I forgot something. I must not be perfect. I forgot something. So these little reminders, help us
Mhm.
to acknowledge our jivaness.
Mhm.
But if we're embarrassed with our jivaness, and we have a lot of pain inside of us that we have not addressed,
Mhm.
then the tendency to want to cover and hide and numb and make that armor so that we're secure.
Mhm.
That armor, that box,
Mhm.
kills our Krishna consciousness.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so it's integrity and vulnerability are protections. So shame cannot live
Mhm.
where there's empathy and vulnerability.
Mhm.
Shame lives in the dark, where it's hidden,
Mhm.
where it doesn't speak.
Yes,
That's where shame lives and grows and festers.
in
And
secrecy.
and shame,
Mhm.
by the way, is the other side of the coin of pride.
Mhm. Yes, yes,
I have so much shame. I got to prove to myself and prove to the whole
yes,
world that I'm not shameful.
yes, yes.
So when we can acknowledge our shame and work on that, what is there to be proud of?
Yeah,
Excuse me.
and also I think when we can see that someone, as you mentioned, and I say it myself many times, is we see someone being arrogant or proud, and it may feel distasteful on the outside, and we may be quick to judge and quick to condemn the
Yes,
person as such a
yes,
proud person, such a bad person. But if you can go beyond that and see the brokenness of the person, the
yes,
shame they have,
yes,
the need they have to
yes,
prove themselves bigger to others,
yes,
then you can
yes,
connect with compassion to that person.
yes,
Or when
yes,
we ourselves see that in ourselves, we can connect through compassion instead with
yes.
judgmentalism, which sometimes we do a lot. We put people in boxes, as you say. He's bad, he's proud,
Ourselves.
he's that, ourselves to
Yes,
begin with. Instead of going beyond this, I will say this external. Uh, okay, pride is there,
yes.
arrogance is there, but for me, that's not the real thing. That's a symptom that is showing something else.
No.
That when you go
Yeah.
beyond that curtain, you see
Yes.
brokenness, shame. You see a
Yes.
fragile human being, so to say, that you can, as you
Yes.
say, empathize
Yes.
with.
Yes.
No?
Yes. Yes.
So then that's when healing starts, when you
Yes.
can connect realistically with what's
Yes.
actually taking place, right?
Yeah.
So, and I'm thinking,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
thinking about your books. I like to go for a minute there in this connection. You have a book called Revealing the Heart, right?
Okay.
And I think that
Uh
emphasizes
huh.
compassion. So, among other things, so how does in this connection developing compassion for oneself translate into becoming more compassionate toward others? If you can share a few thoughts on
Well,
compassion and especially
I can only.
self-compassion, because sometimes we overemphasize compassion into go out and save the world, but
Yeah.
you are
Yeah.
crap to yourself yet. So you are not
Yes.
self-compassionate to yourself. How you can show compassion to others and so on, right?
Yes. Yeah. Well, that book didn't come out until I had done a lot of work on myself,
Yeah.
and um, again, you know, I was I was in a shell of not being compassionate to myself.
Hmm.
But I was justifying it as like, hey, I'm not asking you to do what I'm not doing, so what's your problem? You know? But I couldn't be compassionate because I didn't even know what it felt like. I couldn't even touch my own pain.
Mm.
I was numbing and pushing and shielding. So usually, generally, in my experience, we treat others the way we treat ourselves, unconsciously.
Mm.
And so when we can really be compassionate with those pained parts of us, it is much easier for us to see through the masks, like, wow, this person is in a lot of pain, that they have to, do this so much, they're
Mhm.
really in a lot of pain. Could I ask them a question, that may open them up or not? Like, is everything okay? It's like you got a lot of heavy burden on your shoulders. Are you doing okay?
Mhm. Yeah.
And you know, they may be able to answer that question or may not be, but we all get to a point
Mm.
at different points in our life
Mm.
where something doesn't work, and that's Krishna's kindness.
Mm.
And he's like, okay, seek out. And even what we might call a quote unquote fall down,
Mm.
it's like
It can be an
we can
upgrade.
only go so. It can be an
Yeah.
upgrade. What we think is good and what
Yeah.
we think is bad is all confused.
Yeah.
We don't know, because
Yeah.
sometimes a
Yeah.
fall down can be
Yeah.
the a big wake up call.
It reminds me of Richard Rohr's book called Falling Upward. Right?
Aha.
You're
Yes.
falling but upward. So imperfection can, he will say, we generally grow by doing it wrong than by doing it right. Sometimes
Yes.
we do it right and
Yes.
we get
Yes.
proud or over complacent and over certain
Yes.
and comfort
Yes.
zone, and we get trapped by I'm doing it right. I'm a good boy, I'm a good girl. You need to do it wrong
Yeah.
to become humble, vulnerable, open, and grow through that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Also, you have
Beautiful.
Sukhavaha. You have, of course, you have the books, the two gap books, so to say, right?
Yeah.
Those are the
Yeah.
ones
Yeah.
that I
Uh-huh.
first met in Switzerland. But I like to go to. You wrote also a memoir right, called "What Do You Do About Sue?" If I'm not
What to do
mistaken.
about Sue?
What to
Yeah.
do about Sue?
Yeah.
So then you share your journey of deprogramming, if I'm not mistaken, there. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like to ask you. Of course, that's your life story. It's too much to share in detail now. But in terms of deprogramming, how much do you think we still need to be deprogrammed? Because sometimes we may interpret the
Well,
word deprogramming like only in certain way. Now you're in a satanic cult and but even if you're a sincere practitioner, how much deprogramming occupies a place in our daily life, so to say.
yeah. Well, we are programmed. It's
Hmm.
called conditioning. So we are programmed. And if you know anybody who does computer programming, when you're a computer programmer, you can reprogram a computer,
Hmm.
and so we can learn how to become programmers and reprogram. I'd like to say reprogram rather than deprogram,
Okay. Yeah.
because the deprogramming that took place was actually violent brainwashing,
Hmm.
and it was super super traumatic. So, anything that's forceful, you know, it can be traumatizing, and it actually set me back in probably my healing, and had me cling to my box now even more tightly, because you tried to rip it away from me, and now you are not getting anywhere near my box now.
Mm.
So it kind of had the counter effect of what my mother had wished for. Instead of bringing us closer,
Mm.
I mean, it did work.
Mm.
For a few months I was really confused and shattered. It was like mental rape.
Mm.
And so but then when I started thinking again, then I just started clinging to my little box of certainty even more, because it was so traumatic. So, but it's a story, and the neat thing about the story is it's my mother's story and my story. So it also shows the fanatic side of being a devotee
Mm.
and being fanatical, and how that really pushes away family, and how when family is pushed away, they 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 can get upset and push back
Mm.
harder. So when there are even internal parts of us that we push away, like our relatives, those parts will push back, and it
Mm.
may actually be counterproductive. So I don't know if that's where you wanted me to go with this deprogramming, but reprogramming is something
Mhm.
that I'm very much into. And reprogramming means understanding how we are programmed, and then
Mhm.
creating new programs and
Mhm.
starting to push the option buttons and
Hmm.
practice new programs so that they become a habit and a new neural pathway in our brain. So we can reprogram. And I would say that probably in some way, the deprogramming helped me 40 years later or
Hmm.
35 years later, but it was traumatizing when it
Hmm.
happened.
Hmm. Thank you.
So, yeah, all things do work together
Hmm.
to help us to bring us closer to Krishna, but they may send us around in a circle for a while.
Hmm. As we're wrapping up our conversation, Sukhabaha, of course, there's so much more that we could talk about.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward for that. But a few short questions that come to
yeah.
mind that I'd like to ask you as we wrap up. One will be maybe, what's that the one assumption about spirituality according to your personal experience so far? What is the one assumption about spirituality that you believe most people need to question?
That chanting Hare Krishna is an automatic process, and if you just chant enough, you'll immediately go back to Godhead.
Okay, that's pretty
Can I
accurate.
qualify that? Because that's going to freak them
Of
out.
course. I want to keep you safe and not having any personal attack or anything.
Okay, so I consider chanting Hare Krishna like making ghee. Okay,
Okay. Okay.
so when we make ghee, we turn on the flame very low. So that's the holy name. So we put the holy name on, and as we make the ghee, certain things come up. So then
Mm-hmm.
I ask people, what's coming up?
Mm.
What's coming up?
Mm.
So what is it that comes up when we're making ghee?
Yeah, the fat from the impurities, if you want
It's
to put it this way. Yeah,
impurities.
impurities. Yes.
Yes, the impurities. Okay. So when we chant, the
Mm-hmm.
impurities that are inside of us will come up to our face.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's the good thing that we can do something with them. But what do we usually do when we see those impurities coming up in us? That shouldn't be there. And we stir it back in. And then we think, what's taking so long? I've been chanting. I should be pure by now. What's taking so long? Well, you didn't
Mm.
deal with the impurities.
Yeah.
So the
Let's
chanting does help us
let's turn the fire higher. Maybe that helps, and more impurities are
faster,
coming.
and then we'll burn it.
Yeah, and then like, okay, I will turn the fire off altogether.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a
It's
good
not
example.
about the fire, it's about what we do when
Uh
the
huh.
impurities come to our face. What do we do with them? Can we face them? Can we look at them? Can we be honest about them? Can we heal them? Can we, do something with them, or do we stir them back in? So if we stir them
Hmm.
back in and we think, I'm chanting what's going on here, that's the confusion. So that's my qualifying statement there. It's not that the
Great,
chanting doesn't help us.
no, no, no. Great disclaimer, and I promise I won't make a clip out of our conversation just with the first part of your answer. I won't do that.
Thanks.
So thank you, and I appreciate really the ghee example. Sometimes we use the example that Mahaprabhu gives of the dust in the mirror or the heart or cleaning a room like the Gundicha temple, but I find also the ghee example very illustrative. One last question, Sukhabaha. If you were to ask, if Krishna were to ask you directly, sorry to put you in that seat now. He's your friend, remember. We are friends with him. So if
Okay.
Krishna were to ask you directly, what is the most important lesson you have learned from me so far? What will you say?
Wow, if I heard Krishna saying that to me, I would get
I
tears in
hear, I
my
hear
eyes
that,
and
I hear. Sorry, yeah, tell me.
I might say that I can trust you and that everything you send me is a gift,
Hmm,
even if I don't
hmm,
like it.
hmm. Yeah, that's an important qualifier also. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Anything, Sukhabaha, before concluding officially? Is there any insight or encouragement or? words that you like to leave our listeners with, drawing from your journey or the
Um,
themes we have explored today?
yeah, I mean, well, one thing I tell everybody, I put all my mistakes in my books. My mistakes with my parents, my mistakes with myself, my mistakes with my beliefs, and my misconceptions. And because I feel like we all grapple with really, how do I really become Krishna conscious? We grapple with it. And we have moments of really struggling, like identity crisis. And so, um, if my mistakes can help anybody in their grappling, then that
Mm,
would be a pleasure, that I could use all my mistakes for something good rather than just being
mm,
mistakes.
mm. Thank you. Thank you for your honesty, for your vulnerable embrace of your imperfection, and for being an example of redemption, not only for yourself, but for each one of us, which is a beacon light that
Yeah.
gives hope on the path and on the daily navigation up and down of the journey. So we need more and more testimonies of heroic uh, stories like yours. So thank you so much for being us with us today, and thank you so much for sharing your story and your wisdom. Thanks for coming.
And I'm going to say one more. Can I say one more thing?
We have all eternity on our side, so you can say whatever you want.
Okay, one more thing. You all have that hero
Yes.
inside. That hero is inside each one of you. I don't have anything that you don't have. It's all there,
Hmm.
and you all have it, and you just have to find that hero inside. That's all I want to say.
Beautiful. The hero's journey in Joseph Campbell's terms, which I happened
Yes,
to read
yes,
first about Krishna from one of his books. And then after reading about
uh-huh,
Krishna, the Damodar Lila in one of his books, then I came to know that he's talking about something called the hero's journey with all that it implies. So
yeah,
thank you. Thank you so much for reminding us
yes,
about the heroic potential
yeah,
that is there with all of us. Again, thanks
yes.
for joining, Sukhavaha.
Thank you,
Pleasure to have you here. Looking forward to have you soon
thank
again.
you, thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.